Hey guys, Harry here, and welcome back to the third episode of Hare and Tortoise. You're joined by myself, Harry, and Lee, the intrepid athlete. And yeah, today we're going to kind of lead on from what we talked about last time. We're going to be looking at, what are the main barriers to kind of strength conditioning? Why do people not do it? Obviously, I can say my experiences, but I also asked on Instagram as well, just to hear a few kind of insights as to why people don't do it. A lot of them center around the same kind of thing, whether it's like time or laziness or find it boring or that kind of thing. So hopefully both of us can kind of address that and maybe help a few people out. So if we'll start with time, I guess. Quite a few people brought that up. Just looking at some of them here. Time. If say you've only got, I don't know, 15 minutes or half an hour, can you get a good amount of strength conditioning in? Can you do something worthwhile, would you say?
Well, definitely. I mean, it's better doing something than nothing straight away. So if you have only got 10, 15 minutes here or there, then that's still time for you to focus on some key areas based on, again, especially if you've got any niggles or pain or anything like that. Like I said, a lot of that, like we discussed last week, tends to come from a lack of range of motion or a lack of strength. So we can then focus on, even if it's just doing some calf raises once or twice a week, that could potentially alleviate shin splints and ankle pain. And that takes literally, if you did 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps on calf raises, that takes you 5-10 minutes at best with a little bit of a warm up beforehand. So, and you could do them one day, and then another day, if you've got a spare 10 minutes, you could focus on the hamstrings and do some single leg deadlift, sorry. So yeah, there's definitely a lot you can get in a short period of time.
Yeah, 100%. Like recently, I've had, the odd niggle, nothing serious, but obviously I know it could progress into something worse. So, for example, I've had, just a little bit of knee pain, a little bit of hip pain. I've obviously had this a little bit in the past, and I know what I've done in the past to help. So, for example, one of the exercises I do for this, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the one where you lie on your side, one leg's, I think we discussed it briefly, one leg's on top of the other.
Yes, sideline abductions. So yeah,
Yes.
lifting the leg up away from the body.
Yeah, and that seems to help both my hip and my knee, and also just doing a few calf races with weights, nothing heavy or anything. I only do like a minute of it maybe on each leg. Like it's really not a lot, but it just helps me keep on top of kind of niggles and hopefully prevent like another kind of injury. So it's not a lot of work really. You're not working that hard compared to like say a run. So you know.
And yeah, so time wise, obviously, like we just said there, we can get some quality strength training in a short period of time. And like you just said there, it helps alleviate pain. So it's been proven time and time again. It's really beneficial for injury prevention in terms of running. So if you are already getting loads of niggles and pains and things like that, and especially if you're a recreational runner, I'd argue that if you're time constrained, then you could easily just drop one of your run sessions per week and use that to focus on your strength training. And the benefits you get to your actual running fitness will be far greater anyway. You'll
Mm.
probably better run economy. You'll have less niggles and less pain, so you're less likely to have to slow down or skip a session altogether. And like I said, you're then potentially heading off any serious injuries in the future. So even if it was just, you're running 6 days a week and you drop one of those and do 5 days a week and add in strength session, you're not going to lose fitness or running ability. You're probably going to actually get better.
100%, yeah. And like as a runner myself, like I understand that's naturally what we don't want to do as runners. Like we want to run as much as possible, and we think, the more we run, basically, the better we're going to get. And we won't get injured as much. Like it's just how we think. But yeah, as you say, if you can just switch a run out and add a bit of strength condition, even if it isn't as exciting and you don't enjoy it as much, in the long term, your running's going to be better. You're probably going to get less injuries and less kind of severe injuries. It's no guarantee, of course. Like you could still get injured no matter what. But you're kind of proof in the pudding. You've never got injured, and you're obviously a massive advocate of strength and conditioning. So
Yeah, like I said, it's the other barrier we were mentioning was that sort of lack of interest or enjoyment in strength training.
mm,
So obviously, for you to build a habit, you need to buy into it. Whether that's like I said, emotionally, or you've got other extrinsic factors that are going to motivate you to carry on doing it. So if you don't find it enjoyable, try and find exercises that obviously are a bit more enjoyable or fun. And if you can't, then like I said, use a different motivator in terms of that injury prevention side or improved run economy. Like I said, it's been shown to improve your actual running technique performance, as it were, by up to 10%, which is a huge amount, especially the longer distance you go. So, if you don't want to subscribe to it just because you think, yeah, it's boring, it's not fun, think about it as actually this is going to really, really help me run more efficiently. And like we just said there, minimize the risk of you getting any injuries or niggles, which then the amount of people that have to DNF a race or, DNS a race, i.e. they don't turn up to the starting line because they've got an injury is ridiculous. And strength training could literally be the missing piece in that puzzle that allows them to make sure they get to the start line. So again, that could be another thing you use to motivate you and drive you to do those sessions when you can't be bothered, is to go, well, actually, this is going to help that, little bit extra to make sure I get on the start line for my big race for the year.
100%. I think a lot of runners now know a lot more than maybe a few years ago how important strength conditioning is. But I guess the problem is, as a few people have kind of referred to it, they do find it boring. They don't find it fun. So I'm just thinking, from a self's point of view, how have I made it fun? Just kind of keeping it short. It's nothing too long. Just keeping it kind of to the point, specific. So if it is boring, you don't have to do it for too long. Obviously, you can do it with friends. You can. Obviously, there's certain restrictions in place, but the kind of ease now you can, work out with people outside and all that kind of thing. So if it is boring, say you've got a friend who's a runner and you both kind of struggle with it. If you just speak to each other, organise just a little, you can maybe do it after a run. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, really, is there? So,
Oh.
There's ways of getting around it. You can set yourself little challenges, I guess, with strength conditioning, progressively improving, set yourself a goal, just little things to kind of get you motivated. I guess you don't have a problem with motivating yourself in that sense, but have you got any other kind of little tips for?
I think one of the best ones, other than like we said, using that kind of motivational side to keep you going, is working out with other people. Like you just said there, I think that's one of the best ways. I run a strength of runners class, so again, it just allows runners to work together in a bit more of a social environment, and also having someone there to observe to make sure you're doing it right. I think again keeps it motivating because it's a set time, set day. They obviously then make sure that all the running training kind of works around that. So they just come, and it's only once a week. They just come once a week, make sure they get some good quality strength work, and at least, like I said, that's one session a week is better than nothing, and that will still go some way to helping them get a little bit stronger. But yeah, I personally never really suffered with motivation. I've been in the gym and lifting weights since I was 16, and I've pretty much been doing it consistently for years and years in some capacity, whether it is more kind of classic bodybuilding type training back when I was younger to more sort of powerlifting and CrossFit type training that I do nowadays. I absolutely love throwing a barbell around, so I'll never stop doing that. And I've always made sure it complements my running. And as I said, for me, I fully believe it's one of the biggest reasons why I haven't had any major injuries.
Yeah, and obviously for people that don't know, it's not like you're just doing 2K runs and not getting injured. You've done ultras, huge ultras. So the proof's in the pudding there. Another person, where was I looking at? Basically said they didn't know what they were doing. So when you first starting, and especially when you don't have a specific part of the body to maybe target, like a certain injury or something, I completely understand. It might be hard to kind of get going. Where do I start? Which part of the body? So for someone that maybe can't come to one of your classes or view you online or whatever, what would you kind of recommend to someone like that?
So there's lots of free programs out there online that are pretty decent, and like we just said there, especially for a beginner, they're going to be a good introduction. So they might not sort of take you all the way because they may be basic body weight and resistance band stuff, but it's still going to be a great starting point for someone who's never done it. And then from there, if it's just like a program, a template, and there's no sort of video demos or anything like that, again, you can easily just search the name of those exercises and get lots of demonstration videos. I mean, again, shameless plug here, I've got hundreds and hundreds of demonstration videos on my YouTube channel for free, which cover a multitude of movements from a basic to advanced, body weight to banded to barbell to dumbbell, so you can easily get a program, and then, like I said, just look at some demo videos and then just put the workout into place once you know the exercise and have a practice. And if you're unsure if you're doing them right, hey, I'll happily let you send me videos and to ask me if you're doing it right, and I'll tell you if you're not. I'm here to help runners, and I'm certainly not here just to take runners' money. So, if runners getting engaged in strength training, but they're unsure if they're doing something right, they can send me some videos over, no problem.
100%. And obviously they can contact you on Instagram. And is there
Yeah.
anywhere else you
Yeah,
recommend?
so Instagram, my website is theintrepid.athlete.com, and my email address is intrepidathlete@gmail.com.
Yeah, perfect. One last one before we move on to kind of the next topic. Laziness, just people that say, I'm lazy, I don't do it. How do you kind of tell them to kind of do it?
So laziness, I would say straight away, what's their injury history? All right. So if they're lazy and they're not sort of thinking that, strength training is going to be beneficial to them, then have a look back at how many injuries they've had. And if it's more than one, then they will benefit from strength training. So again, if we think about that injury prevention perspective, all right, if you're constantly getting tired and distressed and a bit fed up with being injured and having niggles interrupt your training and quality of training, or like I said, hindering you from getting to the start line of a race, there's no better motivator than using that to fuel your fire to then make sure, you know what, I don't want that to happen again. I know strength training is going to go a massive way to helping that, to preventing that from happening. I'm going to start doing that.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. But thanks to everyone that sent in an answer. It was a good response, and we'll do more of those where we ask questions on Instagram going forward. And it's good to kind of interact as well. We can speak, give more kind of personal advice, I guess.
Definitely.
But yeah, following on from last week, we obviously spoke about warm-ups in, quite a good amount. So we thought we'd do kind of the opposite cool downs. Another area that, I myself have kind of neglected in the past, as nowadays I'm quite kind of good with it. I'm not very, I don't do a lot. I just basically do a walk at the end of the run and maybe a few stretches. It's nothing like amazingly complicated or anything, but there is something there. But yeah, I know, a lot of people don't do any cool down at all. They'll finish the run out the door and then walk in and sit down straight away. What would you say the main kind of problems with that, and why should you do a cool down?
So cool downs are important for quite a few reasons. So the first one is, especially if we do a bit of static stretching at the end, it helps return the muscles back to their resting length. So if you're engaging exercise, the muscles will slightly shorten just from the pressure and the stimulus that you've put through them. So by engaging in a little bit of static stretching at the end, we can return them back to resting length. So it just minimizes a little bit of sort of tightness, as it were, in the following days. It's not going to stop soreness, because unfortunately there's nothing that stops muscle soreness after training. Foam rolling doesn't, stretching doesn't, etc., etc. So straight away, that's one thing in terms of just your general mobility and flexibility. We want to be engaging a little bit of stretching at the end just to maintain what we've already got. Because again, if we keep missing it out at the end of the sessions, especially if we're not doing a decent warm up, over time you could actually then start losing flexibility and range of motion.
Yeah.
The other one is obviously by going through a proper cool down in terms of that pulse lowering, we start flushing out the waste products from the body, which again is going to help kickstart that recovery process. So again, it's minimizing the time it takes to recover. And then the big one, which is sort of massively overlooked when it comes to a cool down, is the nervous system and all the hormones that are released to aid in recovery. So within the nervous system, we have two elements. We have the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. One is essentially your fight or flight mode, and one is your rest and digest mode. So your fight or flight is, back in the day when, if you were getting chased by someone and all that adrenaline kicks in and things like that, that's your fight or flight mode. When you engage in training, your body goes into that mode to deal with the stress. Because remember, training is a stress on the body. So once you've finished your training, if you don't do a proper cool down, your body could stay in that fight or flight mode for quite a long period of time afterwards. So again, you're delaying the body then going, right, we've relaxed now, we're not having to deal with the stress, let's kickstart the recovery process. So if you're delaying that, that can then have implications for sleep and things like digestion as well. So again, you're potentially hindering your recovery, and obviously we know recovery is where we get our performance gains, especially things like sleep, if you're not getting adequate sleep. So by going through a cool down, like I said, doing the pulse lowering, doing a nice bit of breathing while you're stretching, that helps your body kickstart and switch into that rest and digest mode.
Definitely, yeah. I think sleep would actually be a good topic to talk about in the future, definitely, because that's something, I'm horrific at. I don't on purposely do it. I don't know, for whatever reason struggle to get to sleep. But yeah, going back to cooldowns again, it's a thing. A lot of people are put off because it's kind of boring. It kind of feels, especially after a race or an intense effort, it's like the last thing you want to do a
Yeah.
lot of the time. If it's wet outside as well, if it's raining, you don't really want to be doing like stretches or whatever outside. So it's a lot of kind of barriers. One kind of mental trick I've used recently. I kind of view it as kind of locking in the run. So if I do the run and don't do the cool down or the stretches after, I haven't, locked it in. Obviously, it's a bit of not a myth, but it's not necessarily true. But you get the idea. Like if I don't do the cool down, I might not get the full benefits of that run.
Yeah.
So yeah, I again can improve myself. Like as I said, I do a walk and do some stretches, but nothing major.
But the thing is, though, like you're totally right there. You don't have to make it complex, and it doesn't need to take a
Mm,
long period of time. What you're doing there is absolutely spot on. All you
mm,
want to do is a little pulse lowering phase, literally 3 to 5 minutes. So that could be after you've done your run, especially if it's a tempo or interval session or whatever. Do a bit of steady jogging, then into a bit of a walk, and then obviously you can come to a stop. And you're talking literally 3 to 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It's not a
yeah,
huge amount of time. And obviously, if it's an easy run where you've already been kind of jogging or running at a relatively steady pace for your ability, then you could literally just, like you said there, just do a 2 to 3 minute walk after it. And there's your pulse lowering phase, just a gradual cooling down of the heart rate, and obviously letting that pulse rate lower gradually rather than just coming to that abrupt stop. So 2, 3 to 5 minutes is all you need for that. And then static stretching, you literally need to do 10 to 15 second holds per muscle group, because we're all,
yeah,
like I said, we're not trying to improve flexibility. We're just trying to maintain what we already have and return the muscles back to resting length. So if you just did your quads, your hamstrings, and your calves, because they're the main ones, you're talking, let's say 10 seconds per side. That's 20 seconds per stretch. So that's another minute just for your stretches. So
yeah.
all in all, you can have your cool down done in pretty much 5 minutes.
And obviously, as well, well, in a way, you could do all of it inside. But obviously, if you finish a run, you can walk outside and you can do the stretches inside if it's bad weather or you really want to get inside.
Yeah,
And obviously, you can just stand there watching the TV or whatever. It's really not hard, and the benefits are quite kind of profound. But yeah, I think I'll probably ask on Instagram the kind of main barriers to cool down. Do you think that would be a good kind
definitely.
of thing to get?
And be interesting to hear again if anyone else has got any cool down protocols that they utilize themselves.
What do you do exactly when you go
Pretty
for a
much the same as what you're doing. Like I said, what we just described there. So, like I said, if I've done a hard run session, I'll do some steady jogging for 5 minutes or so, and then a little bit of walking, and then I will stretch out my hamstrings, my glutes, my quads, my calves, and then if I've been particularly a little bit restricted in my upper body because of my strength training the day before or something, then I'll just do a bit of tricep and shoulder as well. Nothing too crazy. And again, 15 to 20 second holds is what I usually do. But like I said, 10 to 15 is more than sufficient. The key is when you're doing the stretches, you just focus on your breathing. So again, remember we're trying to switch into that rest and digest mode. So you want to really focus on slow, controlled breathing if you can, in through the nose, out through the mouth. But I do exactly the same. And then after my strength sessions, it's the same. After I've finished it, I'll do a bit of walking around just to let the heart rate settle, and then go to some static stretches to finish.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it can't be under kind of estimated the importance of range of motion and flexibility.
Yeah,
It can. You don't need to be. This is just my viewpoint from what I've learned. You don't need to be super flexible to be a runner because if you go too far, you maybe lose a bit of that kind of strength in each stride. But just having that extra range of motion, like whenever you watch a top athlete, whoever it is, their leg kind of span or whatever you call it is huge. And when I watch runners just kind of going past my window, I see videos of myself. It's a big contrast, and obviously, the top athletes are focused on that quite a lot. So, you
yeah,
know, doing the cool down can only help that, I assume.
yeah, definitely. And like we said there, especially with the static stretching side of things, you're only holding it for a short period of time anyway. So it's not like we're trying to improve flexibility by huge amounts.
Yeah,
And you're totally right. Runners don't need to be flexible if we're looking from a perspective of being able to do the splits and stuff like that. All
yeah,
right. We don't need extreme levels of flexibility like gymnasts and things, because like you said, if they have too much, we can then cause what's called laxity of the joints, and that makes them less stable. However, we do need certain flexibility or range of motion to be able to run efficiently. We need a certain amount of degrees of ankle dorsiflexion, i.e. the ability for you to pull your toes towards your shin, because that means if you lack dorsiflexion in the ankle, you're not able to absorb ground impact forces as much because your knee isn't able to travel as far over the foot. So whilst we don't need to be super flexible, we still need to be flexible and have good range of motion, especially in certain areas. And like you said there, with this running stride, that comes from being able to have good hip extension, and that's the ability for you to move your leg behind your body. So again, that comes from flexibility through the hamstrings especially. So again, if they're really tight, you're massively limiting how far back you can bring your leg, which, like you said there, is then minimizing how much you can propel yourself forward. So you start to affect running efficiency just by not having as good range of motion.
Yeah, just quickly, I was going to ask from a personal kind of question. My physio's pointed this out to me as well. When I run, my legs don't come up to my bum, if that makes sense. So like they stay fairly low instead of like, is that because I've got a lack of range of motion in the hip? What would that be down to? Or hamstring?
So I would have to have a look at your range of motion to be able to say specifically. But yeah, so if your heel's not recovering underneath your bum, then it could be a technique thing, but it could be a range of motion thing. So it could be that you need to do some drills to consciously focus on bringing that heel up and around. However, when it comes to technique, it shouldn't be a conscious effort anyway. So for me personally, yes, obviously you want a good run gait, but I would say if your heel's not necessarily recovering underneath you, it may just be to do with stride length. It could also be to do with speed, because what you've got to remember is that the leg's only going to go further and further back and slightly higher up with the heel the faster you go. Like you said, you're looking at a top level runner and you're looking at their stride length. That's because they're running 5-6 minute miles over a long distance. Whereas if you look at a recreational runner who's running 8 or 9 minute miles, of course they're not going to have as big a stride length or as big of a kick behind their bodies. So I would say straight away I'd need to assess you. I'd need to look at your hamstring range of motion, look at your hip range of motion through some basic movement screening, and then we could say, yep, it's a flexibility issue. Or if it's not, and those tests come back and go, you've got great range of motion, then obviously it's something to do with the technique or the efficiency side of things.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. And I think it leads quite nicely into our next topic, going on from cool downs to just kind of general recovery protocols and stuff like that. In terms of what I do, it's far from perfect, but I really try and focus on protein, first of all. Obviously, great for like muscle growth and repair and that kind of thing. I've got certain devices, like I've got massage guns, foam rollers, obviously baths sometimes help a bit, I guess. Sleep is one that I could definitely improve on, as I've said. What else? I think they're the main ones, to be honest. Obviously, stretching as well. But yeah, what about yourself?
So yeah, sleep. For me, I always try my best, and I'd say 99% of the time I do. I always make sure I get at least 7 hours, if not 8 hours, in bed asleep every day, and I'm pretty good with that. Like I said, that's a big way. Foam rolling, I use pretty much every day as a recovery protocol just to help with blood flow. So obviously we can delve into this deeper into another episode, but foam rolling is just good for range of motion improvements, but it's also good at relaxing the muscles, like we talked about that rest and digest mode. So I utilize it for that as well. Food, you totally bang on there with the protein side of things, but just generally getting enough calories and stuff in anyway is going to be good for recovery. But yeah, protein, I love a good protein shake, but it doesn't have to be a shake. It can be from any source. And obviously, even as a vegetarian or vegan, you can still, get plenty of protein through plant-based foods and stuff. You just got to make sure you're getting enough, because obviously you've got to be conscious that there's less protein in a lot of those things compared to meat and stuff. But yeah, I'd say that are kind of my main things. Now, from let's say a placebo or a psychological effect, I do wear compression tights after my long runs.
Okay.
So I do my long run and then put those on for the rest of the day. And I always feel like my legs are better recovered the next day than if I haven't worn them, because obviously I've tried to test it out. And when I've done like multi-day events, like I did Marathon des Sables, I always, as soon as I got back in from the run on that day, I always put my compressions on and left them on till the next day. And I just don't know. I always felt like I was then raring to go for the next run, considering I just battered my legs the day before. And then, yeah, I love a good bath as well. But I think, again, from a recovery perspective, that's probably more to do with the relaxation nature of it than the actual bath doing anything else, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean. So, because if we look at Epsom salts, so I was one myself, I used to use Epsom salts quite a lot. Um, but the evidence there is there's no evidence to suggest that Epsom salts actually work in terms of aid in recovery because at the
right.
moment they can't distinguish between whether or not it's just the Epsom salts or whether it's the actual heat therapy of the bath itself, which obviously you're going to get without the salts anyway. So yeah, so I love a good hot bath just to make me feel relaxed, which again I think helps me switch more into that rest and digest mode, and obviously then aids the recovery. But again, it could just be psychological, but if I feel it works, I'm going to utilize it. And that's one thing I'd say with a lot of people.
Definitely. The thing with recovery, like there's so many different things out there, and kind of the science on a lot of these things isn't necessarily kind of, super
It's not
super good.
definitive. Yeah,
So like it's hard to know exactly what to do. There's no like clear routine for, all the best athletes do this. They've all got different things, whether it's an ice bath or whether it's special massage. I know there's like cryotherapy or something like that.
yeah, cryotherapy. Yeah, so cold therapy essentially.
Yeah. And there's a place in Lancaster I'm wanting to go to called Reset, and it does these. Well, it's got saunas and the kind of usual stuff, salt rooms, but it's also got flotation pods as well, which
Yeah.
I've seen discussed on the Joe Rogan podcast a few times.
I thought you
Um,
were right from Joe Rogan.
yeah, yeah, classic Joe Rogan. But yeah, it'd be interesting to try, see if it does make a difference, if it's placebo. It's hard to kind of quantify if it is making a difference, to be
Yeah.
honest. But yeah, I enjoy trying different strategies and different methods.
This is it, because obviously, just because the science isn't there doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Just at the moment, it's not proven that it does. Does that make
yeah,
sense? So, if it doesn't harm you or hurt you and you like it and enjoy it and you feel
mm,
it gives you a better benefit to recovery, or just like we said, you like it, you like the feeling of it, then do it.
yeah,
If it's not causing you pain, discomfort, it's not dangerous, then absolutely, as long as you're not feeling like you're having to do it because someone else has said it, or Runner's World has said it, or something where they've got hidden agendas of making money out of you, then have
yeah.
at. And yeah, so ice baths and all that stuff, lots of people do them and say they're absolutely amazing. There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that they work. There's even some evidence to suggest that it hinders recovery.
Yeah,
However,
I've read that. Yeah,
it's been utilized for years and years by top level coaches for sports teams and stuff, and lots of people swear by it. So, hey, if it works for them, for me personally, I can't think of anything worse than sitting in a
yeah, yeah.
I'd much rather a hot bath. But
Mm,
again, each to their own. Like I said, unless there's definitive evidence there to say it works or it doesn't, or it's bad for you or good for you, then at the end of the day, we're all kind of doing our own experiments then.
yeah.
We're trying ourselves and seeing how it works for us as an individual, which is great.
I really like that, the fact that the science isn't concrete in a lot of these things. So everyone's kind of formulating their own kind of routine and what works for them.
Definitely.
That's quite an enjoyable aspect for me. Like nothing, people can't say to me, "Oh, you're doing well." I'm sure people will say you're doing something wrong, but basically, if it works for me, then it works for me, and it's just about trying different things. As I said, I don't do loads, but it's fun. Like the massage gun, I've been enjoying that. Is it a placebo? Does it work? I don't really know, but it's working for me. So it's just stuff like that.
Well, that's it. And the massage gun is one thing that I want to get into because, again, I've been talking to yourself about it, obviously, and I've talked to a couple of athletes that I work with who have all managed to get their hands on one as well. And all of them say it's a really good tool.
Yeah,
Again, I can't say for sure because there's no real testing on it because it's still a relatively new product.
yeah,
But I want to give it a go and see if it helps, especially with some of those harder to hit areas that, when it comes to foam rolling.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how many of the viewers kind of really look into the science of things. Like, I'm sure there'll be a few. But even when you see like a journal or whatever that's kind of saying, let's say massage guns are great for recovery because we tested 5 people. That doesn't mean everyone's gonna have the same benefits. So you just got to take that into account until there's, kind of hundreds of studies of lots of people. It's really hard to kind of say for definite that these things work, really, isn't it?
Definitely. So, science should give us a sort of a basis of, understanding how things work, but it is literally just that basis. A lot of real world application doesn't necessarily apply to science and vice versa. And like you said there's so many studies that can potentially have done something that gives you a definitive answer on something, but they've only tested a small sample. They've not had a control group, so they may have gone, we've used a massage gun on these people and they improved their, run time by 2 minutes, but they then haven't got another group that are doing the same training next to them without the massage gun to give that direct comparison. So there's lots of holes that you can find in scientific studies. Obviously, there's hidden agendas. Some people are doing it because they've been paid to. Obviously, companies get involved as well. So yeah, it definitely, it's not that we're trying to discredit science, because science is amazing and obviously research is amazing, but especially in the fitness industry, there's so much noise out there. You've got to really use that just to kind of go, right, well, this is what it's currently saying, but I'm really interested. I'll give it a try and see what happens with me. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You've learnt yourself. But the key is then, just because it hasn't worked or it has worked for you, you then don't go and preach to everybody else and say, this is amazing, it's the best for everyone. Anyone that deals in absolutes is lying, because literally nothing out there in science that is an absolute, this thing is the best for everyone, or this thing, especially when it comes to stuff like nutrition.
That's probably my biggest pet hate, to be honest, when anyone says you have to do this, or obviously if they're super specialised in an area, then fair enough. But just kind of, they've read one thing and this is what you got to do. It's tricky. It's tricky. But
even if you specialise in an area like a nutritionist, if they are worth their salt, they're going to know that one particular type of diet or certain types of foods are going to work well with one person, but they might not necessarily with the other. And they'll then prescribe based on individual needs, just like a good coach should, whether that's strength coach, run coach, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to ask another kind of poll on Instagram, see what people do for recovery. Or maybe we can speak a little bit about, what they come up with. It'd be quite interesting to see what they answer. Yeah. Have you got anything else to add on recovery, or?
No, I mean, again, it's like I said, the cool down stuff is a way to kickstart recovery. But if we're talking about what is the best thing for recovery as a broad sense, so again, I know we don't want to talk in absolutes, but if we want to go biggest bang for your buck in terms of recovery, it has to be your sleep and it has to be your nutrition. Those two things. So you don't need to pay loads of money. You don't need to buy all these fancy gadgets and all that sort of stuff. You just need to try and get some good sleep and obviously create a good environment for that, which we can talk about in another episode. And obviously making sure your nutrition's on point, that you're getting decent split of balanced diet, vitamins, minerals, protein, all that jazz to help with recovery.
Definitely, yeah. I'm quite looking forward to talking about sleep in more detail, because it's a topic a lot of people I know kind of speak about the importance of it. My physio, Rowan Wood, he's a big advocate for getting like as much sleep as you can. He's read loads of books, so I'd be kind of interested to look into that in more depth. But yeah, I think we'll probably wrap up there. As I said, I'll be putting 2 polls up on Instagram in the week. Well, not 2 polls, 2 kind of question polls. But yeah, thanks again for watching. We really appreciate the support and we enjoy doing these. Of course, otherwise we wouldn't do them. We'll come up with some more topics next week. Anything else to add, Lee? Or
no, I mean, again, just as people are watching these, it'd just be great people to ask questions. If something, a topic prompts something they're unsure about, chuck us some questions, whether it's on Instagram or whatever, and we'll happily get back to you.
Definitely, yeah. So obviously links will be in the description as always for both me and Lee. And just feel free to pop us whatever question you have. It'd be great to hear. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And we will see you next time.